This is Actar's Reviews, from anime to figures and beyond. Hey, this is Actar and welcome to another episode of Actar's Figure Reviews. Continuing the trend of mecha reviews, today it's a blast from the not so distant past as we'll be taking a look at a Code Geass figure. The feature presentation of today's review being Megahouse's variable action Hi-Spec Guren Nishiki figure. It has indeed been a while since my last Code Geass review, and honestly, I was really surprised when Megahouse announced the release of this figure a couple of months back. I have to admit that I was quite apprehensive to begin with. I mean, anybody remember Megahouse's previous attempts at a Guren Nishiki figure? It's a horrible figure. Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty nicely. It has been 4 whole years since the miserable Guren Nishiki action nightmare frame figure. Let's see if Megahouse has done their homework this time round as we dive straight into the figure review. The box is definitely unconventional as far as mecha figures go. Its packaging is far more reminiscent of, I would say, completed PVC figures packaging. Still, there's nothing half-hearted about it, as it does indeed look really good, what with the shiny lettering and classy red and black color scheme. It bears the Guren's name and what amounts to a nightmare frame in kanji. Now this is literally Battle Use Mobile Armored Humanoid Mare. Well, my kanji is iffy, so do excuse the rough translation. On the side, we have a portrait of the Guren along with its stats and a summary of its role in Code Geass. And on the back, we have a superb action pose of the Guren using its Radiant Wave Surger arm, and a list of the figure's features and accessories. So that's pretty much it for the box. Let's open it up and take a look at the figure inside. One small nitpick that I have is that there were no instructions of any kind included with the figure. Perhaps they felt that the functions of the figure were simple enough to operate without any guide, but again, as I said in the previous video, with an expensive figure like this, you want to be extra careful, and an instruction sheet would have really come in handy. The Guren Nishiki, or Guren Type 2, is the personal nightmare frame of Kozuki Karen, one of my favorite female characters from the series. First and foremost, the thing that would instantly catch the attention of anyone is the brilliant glossy metallic paint that coats the entire figure, save for some unpainted matte parts. While I'm not too sure which I prefer, metallic or flat paint, I cannot disagree that this paint job makes the Guren pop and stand out even when displayed among other Guren figures. And speaking of other Guren figures, in a complete contrast to their minuscule offering 4 years ago, this Guren Nishiki figure is huge. Well, at least bigger than all the other Guren figures out there. For size comparisons, here is the Guren Nishiki in-action offshoot figure by Bandai and the 1/48 scale model. As can be clearly seen, Megahouse's Guren is the undisputed winner of this size battle. Couple that with the metallic paint, and you have one stunning and imposing nightmare replica. Regretfully, my figure does have a little paint issue on the rear of the left thigh, where it seems that the paint was either scraped off or unpainted. Thankfully, from what I understand, this is an isolated issue as I haven't heard any other reports of QC errors regarding the figure. But aside from paint and size, this Guren Nishiki figure is undoubtedly a step above its counterparts in terms of construction. So what exactly do I mean by that? Well, something that might not be apparent to you, the viewer, is the weight of the figure. Let me tell you, this figure weighs a ton. Nearly literally. And that is because, believe it or not, practically 50% of this figure is made of die-cast metal. 50% die-cast metal! Mind-blowing, I know! The body, spine, waist, thighs, lower legs and land spinners are made of metal, making this figure extremely sturdy due to the low center of balance, and have some serious weight to it that screams quality. Just the die-cast content alone would be enough to classify this Guren Nishiki figure as a masterpiece. However, that's not all there is to this red beast, because like any other high-end mecha figure, this Guren Nishiki does boast a number of features. First up, something that was only ever replicated in Megahouse's previous Guren figure, the retractable head for standby mode. This is achieved by simply pushing the head into the body and folding the head cover into place. It does what it's supposed to do and it looks good. Unfortunately, this gimmick also appears to limit the head articulation, which I'll be getting more into later. Next up, as you'd expect, we have an openable cockpit hatch. This time round, however, the cockpit hatch is actually accurately represented as it is on a double hinge joint that enables the hatch to fully retract to the back. The cockpit interior is fully painted and Megahouse was kind enough to provide an exquisitely detailed Callan figure. Despite its size, you can clearly make out Callan's face and suit details. She pegs easily into the cockpit, and of course, the hatch can be closed with her inside. For some reason, I found that this hinge needs to be depressed completely for the hatch to sit flush with the rest of the cockpit. Moving on, we come to the main feature of the Guren, its signature Radiant Wave Surger arm, a terrifyingly powerful and wickedly cool weapon that contributes to the Guren's appealing asymmetrical design. Like its predecessors, the arm can be extended at its elbow and at the forearm. Unlike its predecessors, we have a sure accurate tube that is another first for Guren figures. Folding the arm out does cause the tube to bend, but it also seems to be made out of a rather sturdy, soft plastic that bends pretty easily, so breakage shouldn't be a problem. All in all, because of the size of the Guren figure, the Radiant Wave Surger arm has a really impressive reach. Not to mention, it can be held up perfectly straight thanks to the tough shoulder joints. And the last feature for the Guren is its land spinners. Yep, they fold out. Nothing too fancy about this, save for the fact that they, are made of metal. The unorthodox design of the Guren Nishiki doesn't really lend itself well to articulation. Thankfully, I was pleasantly surprised to see that Megahouse pulled out all the stops and gave this guy some great range of motion. So, articulation-wise, let's get the slightly disappointing part out of the way first, its head. As mentioned previously, I'm not sure if it's because of the fold-away gimmick, but the articulation is quite limited. It does have up and down and side-to-side movements, but it is hindered by the collar and the head cover. Tilting the head too far up, and the cover will begin to close as it hits the front of the cockpit. The head is also on a double neck joint, but I think that that's more for the gimmick than for the articulation. It is a pity, as I believe that they could have easily solved the problem by giving the Guren a longer neck joint. But I'm not a toy designer nor an engineer, so what do I know? For its arms, they are ball jointed at the body, giving them a full range of movement. The arms can also move forwards and backwards from the body. And I nearly forgot to mention that the shoulder pad is separately articulated. The arms can move further in and out using this joint in the shoulder itself. Do note that the one on the Radiant Wave Surger arm is ratcheted, which is truly appreciated on a heavy figure like this. Its regular arm can swivel at the shoulder, has a double jointed elbow, can swivel at the forearm, and its hand is on a ball joint. Similarly, the Radiant Wave Surger arm can swivel at the shoulder. Its elbow joint, ratcheted. Moving on to its hand, here is where things get crazy. Yeah, you have your usual swivel and side-to-side movement, but get this. The fingers and thumb of the Radiant Wave Surger arm are individually articulated at not one, but 2 points. I mean, being an important part of the Guren, this simple system of ball joints increases the amount of poses and play value dramatically. I mean, yeah, you can have him flipping the bird too if you so desire. Hey, don't look at me. That's the first thing that everybody wants to do when articulated fingers are involved. The waist is also supremely articulated with a ball joint here and a swivel joint here. Forwards, backwards, side to side, you name it, this figure can do it. Last but not least, we come to the legs. More lovely ratchets are found in the leg joints, coupled with a ball joint and swivel joint that allows the legs to go forwards, backwards, side to side, and side to side this way as well. The knees are ingeniously double jointed. We have a regular knee joint, but that joint itself is on another joint that pulls back from the thigh to give you added posability. Jointception, I know. Finally, the ankle joints of the feet are separately posable, and the front of the feet are double jointed with a ball joint at the top and a hinge joint in the front. So, with the articulation out of the way, let's move on to the accessories. We first have the Guren's secondary weapon, its dagger, and an exchangeable hand to hold it with. Next, it's Slash Harken. The Slash Harken does have some added mechanical detail at the tip, and it's pretty well sculpted. As for the posable metal wire, it's not only a much stiffer wire that won't bend or droop even when fully extended, it's extraordinarily long, measuring at around 40 cm fully extended. To deploy the Slash Harken, simply pop the retracted one off the main body and peg the wire into the hole. And here's what it looks like when attached. And lastly, the final accessory to be included with the Guren is a stand and base. The base is decorated with the Guren's logo, and the stand is a double jointed stand that pegs into the bottom of the Guren. The accessories and features do feel few and far between, but then again, the Guren in the show wasn't too complex in terms of function or design. And the figure does come with all that is associated with the Guren, and all that you'll need to recreate any of its battles. In conclusion, I would say that Megahouse's variable Hi-Spec Guren Nishiki figure is head and shoulders above its previous release. To reiterate, the metallic paint, high die-cast metal content, magnificent features, great accessories, and stellar articulation that is chock full of ratchet and double joints all come together to make this figure a phenomenal masterpiece level Guren Nishiki figure. I am certain that this figure would please even the most die-hard fan of Code Geass, the Guren itself, or its pilot Callan. Put this bad boy together with Megahouse's Callan doll released quite a while back, and you can get one heck of a display. The only significant downside to this figure, other than the limited head articulation, is that it's slightly misproportioned. After comparing it to the other Guren Nishiki figures that I have and the anime, I realized that the arms in particular are a tad bigger and chunkier than they should be. Admittedly, the cost of the figure is quite high, but thankfully they don't seem to be selling out anytime soon, and thus discounts are bound to occur. Rest assured though that you are getting your money's worth. But for the cost-conscious fan, do know that the in-action offshoot figure, re-released Robot Damashi figure, and the 1/48 scale model of the Guren Nishiki are all outstanding figure representations of the Guren in their own right. So, the Zags are saying, see you guys in the next episode.